Imagine playing Nick with a 23-inch
Oh,
racket.
I could beat Nick with a 23-inch
You reckon? 23?
Yeah, I could beat Nick with a 23-inch racket.
23?
I could beat Fed with a 23-inch
What?
racket. There you go. I said it.
Oh, my gosh.
Fed's walking out on court with a 23-inch racket. I'm taking him in probably 3 sets. It'll be a tight one, tight 3-setter, but
Yeah.
I reckon I'll get him.
Right.
Sorry, Rog. I got you. All right, welcome everybody to episode, what number? I don't know.
4.
4 of the Tennis Culture Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. My name's Nelson. With me as always, Reza Tomset. How are you today, mate?
I am great. Thanks, Nelson. How are you?
Good, buddy. Good. What are we talking about today? What's our topic?
Today we're talking about equipment in sports, specifically obviously for tennis, but sorry, too many P's. Particularly rackets, strings, grips, that sort of thing. How important is it to the tennis game from a level of recreational player all the way up to pro level?
Okay. So you're not talking about coaching equipment. You're talking about rackets, grips, string.
Yeah, as players, I think how much do we rely on our equipment? How important is it?
It's one of those sports, like if you look at tennis rackets, obviously back in the day, you know, wooden rackets, when they first changed to those, were like steel, aluminium.
Aluminium, yeah.
Aluminium.
Nice and light.
Yeah. And then they've obviously come to the ones that they have today, which are made of...
graphite, mixed in with some hypercarbons and some other unusual space-age material.
Yeah. I mean, some of the rackets these days, I feel like they kind of got to a stage maybe 2005, and then there hasn't been a huge level of progression from then, I believe. Anyway, I think they reached a ceiling of like, hey, this is the perfect racket. This is what's going to give you peak performance. And then they can only sort of like tweak it ever so much to get a perfect product, correct?
Yeah, there was a period in the tennis world where rackets started to go through these weird phases. So Wilson had their really skinny rackets. Prince had that mono beam thing. They had the O holes. You remember those ones? With
the big where you put the string through, like big holes.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't really kick off. And there were some other strange designs that Americans were trying to do as well. They just didn't kick off. They all went back, you're right, to the classical more design. And now everyone's using kind of the same racket. There were some really long ones. Remember Michael Chang's?
Yeah.
He had an extra inch.
Yep.
Poor little guy needed a bit more oomph on the serve. So, yeah, the equipment has changed, but I think it's gone back to its original state.
And there's also been a lot of gimmicky stuff with rackets. Like there's been microchips put in. There's these... I'm not saying these are gimmicky because they do serve a purpose, but they have like the little butt caps you put on. It shows you like how fast you swing, how many balls you hit. I mean, it is more for the, say, social or novice tennis player. It's definitely not for your high-end tennis player. I don't feel like you're going to get as much bang for buck if you're at the high level.
Well, Battlelat did it, and I think Nadal was trying it or had it in his racket or something like that. And I don't know if you remember, he had that bad run of form, and people were saying he was so mindset on how many rotations he was doing, how clean he was hitting. Like something was in his head that was messing with him about how perfect he was hitting, because he is OCD. He's a well-documented OCD player, and he says it proudly. But I think it messed with him. I think just knowing too much rather than just feeling it and hitting the ball.
I remember hearing a story where he was trying out these new rackets with the microchip in it, and he had maybe 30 on the side of the court, and he'd pick up one, he'd have a hit with it for 10 minutes, and he'd just throw it away like, nah, it just feels different. And I think when you get at that level, the feel it trumps everything. You could have the best string technology, you should have the best string pattern, you could have the best frame, carbon material, whatever. It doesn't matter. If it doesn't feel good in the hands of the user, it doesn't mean anything. So let's strip it back. Let's go all the way back to when you're first starting off. We always get, and this is probably not a good plug for us, but we're going to be honest. I mean, we have junior rackets here. We have Wilson rackets, which are amazing and they're awesome. But I find that when kids first start playing tennis at the grassroots level, like I'm talking your 5, 6, 7-year-old entry, when you're starting off there, I'm always encouraging kids to go to Kmart, Big W, things like this, because some of the rackets they have there for cheapest chips, which aren't the greatest quality, they do the job for what they need there. I feel like it's not until you start playing a little bit more competitively, maybe in 9, 10, 11, you need something that's a little bit more sturdy, and you can feel it. When we're coaches and I pick up a Hot Shots racket and then I pick up a Kmart racket, then I pick up a Wilson racket, even if it's a junior racket, I can feel the difference between the quality. So I think it's not until you probably start playing a few tournaments and comps that you really need to invest a bit of money into a good racket. Would you agree?
I would agree with that. I think it also has got to do with your level of competition. So, for example, you get a red ball or orange ball. The balls are so soft, it doesn't really matter what you're hitting with.
True.
So all the junior rackets are made of aluminium. They are a malleable, bouncy frame. So if a kid hacks at it, okay, they're going to bend it. They're not going to break it. You do a Nick Kyrgios with an aluminium frame, it's just going to bend. So it's still usable. That's the reason why they use it. It's cheaper and it just bends.
Yeah.
So that material, when you hit with it, is not very stiff. It's kind of very wobbly. So whenever you hit with a junior racket, you'll go, oh, this is so wobbly. Ugh, I don't like it. So you use that racket for the red and orange. When you start getting into green and then obviously yellow the balls are heavier. That's when you need to start switching to a stiffer frame, a stiffer material like the graphites and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. When you use a racket, what's the first thing that you take note of?
It's hard because I can be quite technical with rackets, but when it comes to actually hitting, it's just got to feel right.
Yeah.
And I've picked up some weird rackets and gone, oh, this is not too bad.
But what makes them weird?
Weird?
Oh, you mean weird as in like it might be a different brand or different shape?
The gimmicky ones, you're talking about. Like
okay.
Some weird ones.
What I'm asking though, when you pick up a racket and it just doesn't feel right, why doesn't it feel right to you? Like, try and explain that to me.
And this is where we are going into the conversation of equipment. How important is it? People will blame string, the racket itself, the tension, how long it's been in there, the grip. All these sort of factors start kicking into people's performance and start going, doesn't feel right. So, if the string's been sitting there for ages, too loose, so the balls are flying everywhere, too much spring, no kickback, no power, no spin, it's just too hard to control. The string quality is pretty bad. You get some basic synthetics or something like that. That's nasty. The racket, like you use a Babolat Pure Drive sometimes, right? They used to be one of your favorite rackets.
Yeah.
You've now converted to the Wilson Ultra, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I'm also using the same thing. And when I used your Babolat, I couldn't get it in the court.
Yeah, interesting.
And it's a great racket. I know it's a good racket, but I just didn't like it. I couldn't tell you why. It's too flexible in the throat or, I could go all into technical. But for me, it's like food. It's either love or hate.
That's a great way of describing it. When people come up to ask and say, what racket's perfect for me, it's so hard. We can only give our feedback to what we like. And if someone came to you and asked for advice on a racket, I think you'd give very different feedback to what I would give on a racket because, again, we have very different, feel to what it is. The first thing I notice when I pick up a racket is the weight of it. For me, the weight is everything. Now, I'm a little guy. You're a bigger dude.
Yeah.
So you would probably prefer something a little bit heavier.
Yeah, I do.
Something that's, you can swing through with, minimal force. You kind of just rely on flow. And you like the feel of a heavy racket in your hand.
Yep.
I'm complete opposite. I like to ball all my force up into a little tight little ball. I said that's, I don't know. I'm like Tasmanian devil. Like just get it and I like to swing as hard as I possibly can, and I like to do that with a lighter weight racket. So everyone's different. I got a question for you.
Yep.
When we talk about equipment in tennis, and today's topic is how important is it, at the top level. I was reading a book, and the guy in the book said that if you were to go out and play a game of golf, and you got $5,000 clubs, and you're a novice golfer, and you went out there and you played with $5,000 clubs and you were playing against Tiger Woods. And Tiger Woods had to go to Kmart and buy an $80 set of golf clubs. And he said that the whole point of it was that Tiger Woods would still beat you because it's about the person using it rather than the actual equipment.
Yep.
My question to you, I agree with that, I think, with golf being such a technical sport. With tennis, though, now, here's a topic. I'm going to throw it.
I like where you're going with this.
Throw it a challenge, right? If I get to use whatever racket I like, and I challenge Federer or Barty
or Nick
to a one set.
Yep.
And I said, guys, you've got an $80 limit. You can go into Kmart, and you have to buy one of those cheap aluminium rackets. Now, look, I'm not saying that I would beat them, but I reckon I'd have a good crack. There you go. I've said it on not national television. I've said it on a worldly renowned known podcast. I'm throwing the challenge out there.
A locally renowned podcast.
Locally renowned podcast. I'm throwing the challenge out there. But do you know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
I think that when people at the top level of tennis, when they start going, oh, the rackets, you've got to give them a bit of credit there because it is your main weapon. It is your main piece of equipment. It's one thing. Shoes are one thing. You know, playing on a different surface, one thing. But your racket is your feel.
It connects you to the ball.
Exactly. So I feel that it's more important in tennis than other equipment might be in other sports. Like if you look at NBA, you know, you're more of it's more of a skill for you. You don't go and study all the basketballs before and go, oh, that's a Spalding, that's a Wilson. No, I play better with this, I play better with that.
Particular grip types.
Yeah, it's
treads.
So I really do feel that choosing a racket is important, and having your racket, a racket suited to you, is super important in the game of tennis.
It's interesting you say about the Nick Kyrgios. I had a good conversation with a friend of mine, Mr. Middo, Coach Middo. I hope you're listening, buddy. We had a discussion at, Nick is, I'm putting my hand up quite high, a high skilled level. And then we're in the middle somewhere. We're putting ourselves quite high. What racket would he have to use to be pushed down to our level? Now, we were talking like junior rackets. So, not because a full-length racket is 27 inches. So we're talking, okay, does he try 26? He could handle that. 25? 23? Imagine playing Nick with a 23-inch racket.
I could beat Nick with a 23-inch
You reckon? 23?
Yeah, I could beat Nick with a 23-inch racket.
23?
I could beat Fed with a 23-inch
What?
racket. There you go, I said it.
Oh, my gosh.
Fed's walking out on court with a 23-inch racket. I'm taking him in probably 3 sets. It'll be a tight one, tight 3-setter, but
Yep.
I reckon I'll get him.
Right.
Sorry, Rog, I got you.
But that was our conversation, trying to figure out what level. Because we do that with some of the kids. We try and say, okay, I'm going to try a smaller racket. I actually played a group of kids the other day, and I said, I'm going to beat you with my foot. So I went in and they played soccer tennis.
Yeah.
And I got 4 out of 5 points. I was pretty happy.
Yeah,
They got a little nervous, dumped one in the net. Pff, there you go. So now I've got this big thing where I can beat them with my foot. They love it. I do anyway.
So we've obviously agreed that
Yeah.
equipment is huge in the sport. Do you think, or can you see any more technological advancements with a racket that is going to be a game changer? I can't. I think we've kind of reached a bit of a ceiling with it. But, I mean, unless I'm thinking that there's some sort of magical power you can adapt to a racket, I think we've seen at the moment, and probably over the last 5 years, the top quality of rackets that you will ever see. I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'd love to be surprised and something epic comes out in the next couple of years, but...
Yeah, I don't know. The biggest advancements right now are all in this material, what material they use for the racket. So Head's got graphene. Wilson's got their basalt fibers, their ample feel stuff.
How much of a difference are those things making?
All it does is reduce the stiffness and the vibration in the racket. So if you notice, rackets are getting less boingy, I guess is that a technical term?
Yep.
Boingy.
Boingy.
They're less
Look it up.
boingy, and they're just becoming more powerful. And then, of
Yeah.
course, with the string technology, that's also playing a factor. But what's the other interesting thing, what I think rackets are going at the moment, where people are going with rackets, is customization, personalizing. Sorry, that P was too loud. Personalizing. And, you see on Wilson now, you can get your own racket, the Wilson Blade or the Wilson Clash, and you can get it all decked out in any color you want.
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing right now. But there's also things you can adjust, like your swing weight, your balance, the overall weight, grip size, grip shape to suit your hand. Like you can do a ton of stuff with a racket these days. And that's what the pros do. None of their rackets that they use...
Oh, no, they're not off the shelf.
They're not off the shelf. People kind of get confused with that and say, well, I'm using Roger's racket. No, you're not. I mean, Roger's racket is probably close, but I think his is heavier and differently balanced.
A lot heavier, right?
Yeah,
Like
a lot
fair bit heavier.
Yeah.
What's Federer's racket? It's like
365?
360 grams is ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, 340 breaks my arm, and I
Yeah.
can't imagine what he does.
300 breaks mine. So.
So yeah, that's where I think it's going, and string technology is changing a little bit.
Yep.
But you never know. Like the last gimmick I remember was that Head MXG. Now I don't know if anyone knows this one. I tried it, and I
Yeah.
actually didn't mind it, but it never kicked off. It was some weird throat design or something.
We liked it for coaching because it was easy on the arm. It felt good for just sort of basic rallies, continental grip, flattening it out a little bit. But yeah, you're right. I think we have reached, and I think now it's starting to get down to those little 1%ers, the difference in strings, the small little customizations, and things like that. But you know what you do have to customize, Rez?
What don't you have to customize, Nelson?
Well, you don't have to customize your resume if you want to go to college and be a player. Do you know why?
Why?
Because it's pretty simple. The team at Ready Coaching, Ready College Recruiting, Jake and the team, they'll do it all for you. We talked about in the last episode. He's unbelievable. Being a Ready College athlete, what Jake does is he reaches out to the colleges. He does all the legwork, and bada bing, bada boom, you're in college.
In college, just like that.
So if you do want to, we'll put the link underneath here and reach out to Jake and the team.
With the correct website.
Correct. We got it wrong last time, so sorry about that.
No.au, which costs a lot more money, by the way.
So, rackets. Let's wrap this up.
Yep.
If you were to have somebody come up to you and they say, Rez, what is the best racket for me? Or how do I find my best racket? How do I discover what racket is going to be best play for me? What's your advice to them?
My advice is to test drive the players, see how they... No, that sounds really horrible. I would get them on court, have a hit with them first, and give them an understanding how they play. And I would suggest to them to find... I would pick weight, and I would pick overall balance, like a nice evenly balanced racket. I believe in an evenly balanced racket for a beginner player, recreational player, more handle-heavy racket for a more advanced player. And depending on how they play, that's how I would start with a racket and give them about 4 to 5 options and say, let's try a few of these. You know, it's like a car. It's like anything. You want to try it first. You don't go rush out there, go online and just buy it straight off the shelf. You need to see how it feels and need to test it with, you know, a good set of strings and a good opportunity with it.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing for me. It would be just repetition. I've picked up rackets and I've loved it for the first 2 weeks that I've hit with it. And then after 2 weeks, I'm like, nah, this kills my arm. Or this,
really?
This, so that. Yeah. I think you need to hit with a racket for minimum a month to get a good idea of it. I know, but you know, if you're talking about spending $300-$400 on a racket, you know, you don't want to be that guy or girl who goes out like Rez and just buys rackets willy-nilly.
Yeah, but mine are different,
Look,
though.
Yeah, I was just joking. Settle down, right?
Sorry.
So but go out there. It's hard to take the reviews with, you got to take the reviews with a grain of salt because they're not wrong. You know, they'll tell you what is stiffer, what's a little bit heavier, lighter, what's a bit more, got the better weight distribution, things like this. But at the end of the day, you've got to feel and you've got to play with it. So my recommendation would be, guys, go out, purchase or not purchase, demo as many rackets as you can. Go to your local coach, see if your local Rebel or Tennis Warehouse. I know sometimes online there's a few stores that do demos.
Yeah.
And
do
you
demo
put
models.
a deposit down, they send it to you, you send it back after a little while. I think that's the best way because at the end of the day, your racket is going to be the one that feels best in your hands. That's why you look at the top 100 players. They're not all using the same racket because there's not one best racket. There is multiple different rackets that are great for multiple different players.
And you know what? A fresh restring on your old racket that you haven't used for a while, I would get that restrung.
It's a game changer.
That can change how your racket feels completely.
Even like a facelift of everything. Brand new grip, new restring, little spit shine it up. Hey, even paint it. Actually, funny story to finish off here. So my brother, one of our coaches here, Buster, he's 10 years old and he wants brand new rackets. Now, mum and dad, you know, we didn't grow up rich or anything, so we had to think on our feet. So Buster had these old Wilson hammers back in the day, had 2 of them. And they were a pretty popular racket in Cooma. A lot of kids had them. So my dad said, you know what, Buster, we'll get you some new rackets. Because Buster's like, oh, I can't play with these. Anyway, so we go home one night, and when Buster goes to bed, Dad goes out to the back shed, and he cuts all the strings out, and he takes the racket. What is it? The cover, the
grommet strips.
The grommet strips off the top, and he spray paints it, white. And he leaves a little bit of masking tape on for a bit of difference, so a little bit of blue stripes here, blue stripe there, and puts the grommet strips back on, restrings in the morning, and a couple of days later, he wraps them up and he gives them to Buster. I'm like, Buster, I've got you 2 brand new rackets, you know, exact same shape. It's the same racket, obviously. And Buster, being Buster, is just like, oh my God, these are amazing. This is the best thing ever. And he goes out and plays like 2, 3, 4 weeks. Like, this is the best. He's playing off his tree. Little did he know that a lot of the kids were giggling, going, oh my God, this is clearly a painted racket. Like, you know, there was even a kid that said, I'm pretty sure that's been painted. He's like, no, these are new rackets. Like, no one's got them. Anyway, so one day it was really hot, like really hot. And so it's hot out on court, and Buster's racket starts melting. So So Buster's playing this point, and he tucks the racket under his arm for a second, and then he pulls it back out, and then underneath his arm, on his black shirt, is all this white and blue paint, and it's like stringing off the court. It's dripping down onto the grip, and then finally you see the Wilson Hammer logo underneath, and Buster's like, I've been played. So if you want a new racket and you haven't got money, hey, Game Chat, it's all in the mind, right?
Doesn't Drew still do that? Does he personalize the paint jobs now?
Oh, yeah, he's great. If you want to get a personalised, customised racket, go see Drew. So
Yeah, wow. Drew, love your work. And poor Buster.
anyway, guys, thanks so much for listening. Hope you guys got a bit of value out of the podcast today. Make sure if you're not subscribing, click that subscribe button. Tell your friends about the podcast. And yeah, we'll see you very, very soon. This is Nelson and Reza from Tennis Culture signing
Out.
Killed it.
I'm on
You
song.
can even do the outro next one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, don't get too excited. Otherwise,
Oh.
I'll take you back off.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, come on.